Hello and thank you for watching the Cardboard Dungeon. My name is Pat, and today we are looking at the Hernfar Guardians Army Pack for BattleLore Second Edition. This has been a long time coming, the first set of expansions, along with the Warband of Scorn for BattleLore Second Edition, which released in 2013, and here we are in the middle of 2015, and these are finally arriving. Very exciting for BattleLore fans, especially since 2015 is looking to be the year of BattleLore. So we've waited a long time to get expansions for the base game, but now we have the reinforcement packs coming up in the very near future, and Fantasy Flight Games just announced a third faction for the game, the Undead, which should be coming out before the end of the year, barring any further dock worker strikes or unforeseen issues. So very exciting, but let's take a look at Hernfar Guardians, which adds to the Deccan forces, one of the two forces along with the Uthak Ilan from the base game of BattleLore. So what this brings to the game is 4 brand new units, along with additional units of your Citadel Guard base infantry unit, plus a handful of other things that will serve to make the game much more interesting. So we're going to start with the additional stuff. You get 5 new scenarios, which is great because the scenarios out of the base game were starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. My daughter and I play BattleLore a lot, and our games were starting to feel pretty samey. We've gotten to know the scenarios in the base game very well. We've each got our favorites, so we tend to see a lot of the same stuff pop up over and over. But in addition to the new scenario cards, you also get a new 20-card lore deck that you can completely replace the lore deck from the base game with. So at the start of the game now, you choose one of these 2 lore decks, and you can also do a little bit of lore deck customization by taking out up to 5 cards from your chosen deck and replacing them with 5 cards from the other deck. The only stipulation being you can still only have a maximum of 2 copies of the same card. The new deck does have several repeated cards from the original deck, but also several new cards that work directly with the new units. So very cool. You also get 2 new types of terrain. The first is Crystal Spires. This costs 2 points to put into your army, and when a friendly unit occupies it at the start of your move step, it adds 1 die to each of its combat rolls during the turn. So this is very cool, especially with some of the new ranged units that Deccan gets in this expansion. Next, we have the Barricade, which is a terrain type that both armies get in their expansion packs. This is kind of cool. It costs 1 point to put in your army, and you actually move it around after you reveal your deployment to any empty hex on your half of the game board. And then when a unit moves into it, it has to stop or take 1 damage if it wants to continue moving. And it also works the same way with retreating through it. So it must stop, and if it has to retreat more during the same combat, it's going to take some damage. So that's very cool. It gives you additional customization to the setup of the game board, and it will let you put these barricades out in key strategic locations to keep the enemy at bay, which is going to be important, especially for Deccan, because they have 2 ranged units out of their 40 new units. Also, you get a new addition to the game, a faction banner, and some of the scenarios are going to use this. You'll put it on the board where the scenario tells you to, and then if you can claim that hex, it will give you 1 victory point, and it does nothing for the opposing player if they're on that hex, except prevent you from getting that victory point. And then finally, this is something that I'm very excited about, probably more than I should be, but you also get a 10 victory point token. Now, I'm excited about this because one of the things that always annoyed me about BattleLore Second Edition is that the base game simply doesn't have enough victory point tokens out of the box. My daughter and I play some games where we go neck and neck, and our scores run up into the 20s, and you will run out of victory point tokens to track that. Not a game breaker by any means, but it's kind of annoying when half of our games end up with us running out of VP tokens and having to break out the iPad scoring app or pen and paper or whatever. So these are cool. There's 1 in each of the expansion packs, the army packs, and it should prevent that issue for the most part from popping up again. So it's good that Fantasy Flight recognized and rectified that issue. All right, now let's get to the exciting stuff. Let's look at what you get out of the box, the cool new units and miniatures. So first of all, you're going to get 3 more units of Citadel Guards. These are the base infantry unit from the core game, exactly the same as the ones in the core game. You just get 3 more. I'm not really sure that this is absolutely necessary. Maybe Fantasy Flight is gearing up to release an epic BattleLore expansion that lets you increase your builds up to 100 points or so, and if that's the case, then these will definitely be useful. But I think you get 5 units of these guys in the core set, and that's always been enough for us in our games, and especially now with even more build options with the new units. I don't see myself ever using more than that. But you never know. It's I guess they're good to have around. But not what we're here to look at, because these are old units. Now let's get into the 4 new units, starting with their caster units, which is new to these expansions. Casters are basically ranged units. They work just like ranged units as far as making attacks. They hit on the bullseye result on combat rolls, but they have the caster keyword, and that's going to come into effect with some of the new lore cards. So the Greyhaven Battle Mages are the Deccan casters. They cost 5 points per unit. You get 3 units of these guys. And they have 2 speed, 3 attack at ranges 1 to 3, and 3 health. And they've got a Rune Shield heroic ability, so on their heroic results, they can spend those to put a shield token on a friendly unit within 1 hex, and then that basically absorbs 1 hit against that unit, and then the shield token goes away. They also have the ability Catalyst that works with lore results. This lets you draw a card from your lore deck, as well as gaining a lore when you spend a lore result on that, which is pretty cool. It's going to let you cycle through your lore deck a lot faster if you have a bunch of these guys on the field, and get the best cards out of there as quickly as you can. So those are the Greyhaven Battle Mages. All right, next up we have the Ironbound, and these are a new elite unit. You get 2 units of these guys. They have a speed of 1, an attack of 4, and 3 health. They have armor 1, which lets them ignore 1 cleave result produced from each combat. And they are automatons, so during the order step, you can spend a lore to order it, even if it's not in one of the sections shown on the command card. And if you do this, the unit can add 1 additional movement during the move step. So it'll bring its low speed of 1 up to 2, which is very cool. Especially excited about these guys because they are a 4 attack non-legend unit for Deccan, which lets them hit harder. They didn't have that before. The Uthik did with the Obscenes. So it's cool that we've got a hard-hitting melee unit now, although Deccan's not really suffering for their melee, but these guys are neat. I mean, I'm very excited to get them into the game as much as possible. And they cost 6 points like all the other elite units in the game. All right, next up we have new Cavalry for Deccan. So they are becoming the Cavalry faction because Uthik still doesn't have any. Horse Riders, I guess they've got the Flesh Ripper Brutes from the base set, but those are monsters, not really Cavalry, even though I think they have the Cavalry keyword. But these guys cost 6 points. They have a speed of 3, an attack of 3, and 3 health. They have a trample ability, which lets them do damage for retreat results, even if the unit is supported, which is cool. So support will do nothing against these guys and their retreat results. They just slam right into the opposing units. And going along with that, their heroic ability is called Charge. And if they weren't adjacent to the target unit at the start of the move, they deal 1 damage if you can spend the heroic results. So they slam right into the enemy units and do a damage before along with the combat results. So these guys have a couple extra ways to do damage that normally don't apply. So very cool. And of course, in conjunction with the cavalry from the base set, if they've got one of them adjacent to the target unit, they can roll extra dice, and they have all kinds of ways to really beef up their attacks. So very cool. I'm excited to be able to make very cavalry heavy armies now for my Deccan, because I always play the Deccan. My daughter will not let me play Uthik. That is her faction, and hers alone. All right, finally, the big new legend unit for the Deccan, the Siege Golem. This guy costs 8 points. It is a ranged legend, the first we've seen in the game. It has Immovable 1, which lets it ignore 1 retreat in each combat. It also has a heroic ability called Barrage, where you can spend a heroic result to cause 1 damage to an enemy unit adjacent to the target unit, so it's got a little splash damage effect going on. And it is a behemoth. If it moves during your move step, it cannot attack. It ignores units when determining line of sight, which is very cool. And it's got a speed of 1, rolls 4 attack dice at ranges 2 to 6, so extremely long maximum range, but it can't attack adjacent units, and it has 6 health. So very cool. I like that the Deccan have more ranged options now. One of the new scenario cards actually plays into that, where you get a victory point for each enemy unit you defeat with ranged attacks. Nice options along with their archers from the base game for really rounding out your ranged army. And you can build a ranged heavy army and really lay into the enemy before they even get to you. But of course in BattleLore, ranged is not the greatest way to attack. Only one hit result compared to 2 for the melee attackers. But with the Siege Golem rolling 4 attack dice, the Battle Mages rolling 3 attack dice, the new Crystal Spire adding an attack die to attack rolls, I think that ranged attacks might come into play for these guys, which is very exciting. Okay, that is Hernfar Guardians Army Pack for BattleLore Second Edition. Very cool, much needed reinforcements for your Deccan army in BattleLore. Thanks again for watching the Cardboard Dungeon, and stay tuned. We will have a look at the Warband of Scorn, the army pack for the Uthik Elan, in the very near future. See you next time.